Hi, my name is Deanna Lindberg. I'm an occupational therapist at Springboard Pediatric Therapy. Springboard Pediatric Therapy is a center for speech therapy, OT, occupational therapy, physical therapy, who serve kids birth to into early adulthood to support them. This is our new Nugget series. This mini series is called Cozy Connections, and today's topic is on connecting, co-regulating, and calm. One thing I like to say before we get started today is while I am an occupational therapist, I'm not your occupational therapist, or if I am, I'm not medically prescribing something in this presentation today. So if you have additional questions, always feel free to reach out. We're happy to have a consult with you. We also offer parent coaching, which can be helpful for families that are looking to be able to co-regulate more. To get started today, here's our agenda. We're going to understand regulation, co-regulation, and self-regulation, and the progression of which. We're going to talk a little bit about strategies for supporting regulation and explore co-regulation and connection techniques. So first, we need to understand what is regulation. Regulation is the ability for the body to fluctuate to ultimately be in a state of readiness or calm. But when we're heightened, we're experiencing excitement or stress, our body, our parasympathetic nervous system kicks in to kind of bring us down, bring the temperature down to be in a place that's ready to connect with others. When we're tired or fatigued, but we have to get ready for work or something like that, our sympathetic nervous system kind of heightens us a little bit, again, to be in a place that's ready to connect with others and work. That said, everybody goes through states of regulation and dysregulation throughout the day, and we'll talk a little bit about that. A lot of parents, when they come into us, their goal is self-regulation, but there's a pathway. So that's something that is learned over time. Just like an infant is a complete co-regulation dependent and requires their parents, there's kind of stages of what teaching self-regulation looks like. And even the emergence of like true self-regulation doesn't truly come until probably the age of 7, often if not later. And in certain cases, it's going to be even hard to regulate independently during times of stress, and you need a co-regulator. I think even adults can have a hard time accessing those coping strategies when they're in a state of stress. So we talked a little bit about how regulation is the relationship between behavior and kind of what we're showing with our body and that stress cortical response. Daniel Siegel, he's a great psychologist, talks about the brain as a fist. So if you take your fist, the front part of your brain where your knuckles are, this is the thinking part of our brain. Where my thumb is, if it's inside the fist, that's the emotional center. And then the back of our brain is, we call it like our lizard brain or fight or flight, animalistic brain. So this front part is kind of what makes us human. But when we're in a state of emotional response, he calls it flipping your lid. So your emotions take over. It actually turns off the thinking centers. So we're just operating in that fight or flight state. That served us really well when, maybe we needed to run away from attackers. Back in the caveman type days, but it doesn't serve us so well as children or adults. We want a just right, ready level of activation, but we can easily become overly activated. So regulation's impacted by a few things. One is each other. Like I talked about in infants and childhood, even as adults, we are constantly co-regulating with others, or sometimes co-dysregulating. And we'll talk about that in a moment. So it's when others help support our regulation. The ultimate goal is self-regulation. So that's the ability to know your own body state and make adjustments to maybe to use a coping strategy or to use a wake-up strategy to be in that level to perform at your best. When thinking about regulation, I think it's really important to talk about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. At the bottom is physiological needs. So just like, again, that infant example, if we are feeling hungry or tired, cold, they're going to be upset. This still holds true with children and even adults. If they're feeling hungry, you're more likely to get that hanger response, or tired, you might hit a shorter fuse, and it seems a lot less rational. So we always need to be making sure that those physiological needs are being met. As we move up the pyramid, next is safety. And this is where that connection with an adult becomes really important. So feeling connected, I'll talk at the end about one of my tips to just support regulation throughout the day from psychologists is the 7-minute rule, where you spend 7 minutes of special time with your child a day. That's never leveraged. That really helps foster that connection and sense of safety. Again, that also leads into that belongingness and love needs to feel connected with others. And if we're not feeling connected with others, we're more likely to kind of feel that state of dysregulation. And further is esteem needs. That's where if we're not feeling confident with something, we're more likely to kind of feel that state of stress. And finally, self-actualization. But often, one aspect of increased levels of meltdowns or frustration is from those lower level challenges. It's not just that maybe they didn't get something they wanted, but they're having a hard day. Maybe a lot of things weren't successful. They kind of held it together. They're hungry, they're tired, things like that. So it's always important, what are the other pictures going on throughout the day and impacting that state of regulation? Like I mentioned earlier, we all experience states of stress and relaxation throughout the day. These are normal. These are normal with kids as well. And they need to be taught how to help to manage that. And that often comes from us as the adult. It's okay for you to talk about hard moments of your day and easier moments of your day. Times when we felt stressed and times that we feel more regulated. I think often what happens is, as adults, we only talk about the positive in ourselves, but then we often talk to kids when they're dysregulated or about their dysregulation. So they almost don't even feel that it's normal to have periods of stress throughout the day, that mommy and daddy also experience those, and maybe how they've coped with that. This is where I like to take a moment and just have you think about who you regulate with and who you dysregulate with. You can also think of that Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Maybe at the end of the day, you're feeling tired, you worked all day, or you were with the kids all day, and your fuse is a little bit shorter to be working with them and having that threshold. Or your spouse or your friend maybe might say something, or they had a hard day and say something, and you're a little bit more reactive. So there can be this state of co-dysregulation too, even among adults. So if we can think about those days that when we're just not feeling connected with a friend, a spouse, partner, or even your parents, you called them and didn't get the reaction you were looking for, that can be really isolating and kind of make you feel more stressed. Similarly, maybe you came home and your significant other parenting partner was really calm from the day, really smiley, cooked you dinner, and now you feel really connected, and you're more likely to have a smooth night. You experience those periods of co-regulation and co-dysregulation as well. Where does co-regulation come from in that concept? It comes from something called mirror neurons. This is inside of our brain, and it allows us to feel empathy. So when what allows us to feel empathy also allows us to feel kind of distress. So we are constantly picking up signals from others to help us make judgments about when to go up to them, what to say, things like that. So this is important because if your facial features show distress, the other person across from you might feel that distress as well. And that plays a role with our kids. If you're feeling distressed, they can also physically sense that because of these mirror neurons that are equipped to pick up the smallest changes in facial features. So it can be a support, or it can be something that kind of exacerbates stress, or it can also be a support for calm. Your facial features and body signals show calm, the other person can pick that up as well. It's not the complete magic bullet. It's not like it instantaneously works, but it is one important factor throughout the day. I mentioned this before, but this is where also that modeling of both how you cope with hard emotions and expressing good emotions are important for children to watch, that all feelings are normal and they observe and model. If you've ever heard them say something, you're like, where'd they pick that up from? Maybe it wasn't the best words or phrase. They do the same thing with what you want them to do too. So being that model of what works is really important. That said, we are constantly co-regulating or co-dysregulating throughout the day. So I like to talk a little bit about proactive regulation. I'm going to break this up into 3 categories of sensory input throughout the day. That's going to help, I call it a draining cup. If our cup is full, we've been filling it with different things throughout the day. We're working hard, maybe we're stressed, different conflict. Sensory input can kind of drain the cup. Think about like what a workout or a good massage does. It kind of helps you reset, drains the cup so you have more of a threshold for other things. Breaking down activities so they're not filling the cup as much. So breaking down hard activities or hard times. And then knowing the hard times. Being proactive can help make more moments of regulation. So sensory input throughout the day. This is where the concept of heavy work has come in, or proprioceptive input on the internet. Proprioceptive input releases serotonin, which is that feel-good chemical in our brain. This is why weighted blankets have become a big fad, or workouts feel good, again, why massages feel good. That said, every child's different and they need different things. So here are some kind of examples and ways to put it into every day. The best way is also to put it into games so it doesn't feel like an extra demand on them. But proprioceptive input is anything push, pull, lift, or hang, or compress or squeeze. This might be where your child is looking for extra hugs from you. So if they're looking for hugs, add 5 seconds if they enjoy it. Have them help carry in the groceries or push around a grocery cart, those little grocery carts at home, or laundry baskets full of heavier things, and make it a game. So you're adding in heavy work throughout the day. And when we think about activities, we want to think about the Just Right challenge. This is where we can break down a hard activity to achievable chunks, because what happens a lot of times is, like I said, it's filling that cup when we're engaging in hard activities. And sometimes when we're at the top of that cup, we can't think, again, that thinking center of the brain's kind of off. So if we help break down the activities throughout the day so that way they can be successful, we're more likely to support that regulated state. We call it the Just Right challenge in therapy. But an example would be with a puzzle. If you're feeling overwhelmed looking at an 100-piece puzzle, maybe you take out all the middle pieces first, or you offer to help, or you clump the like colors together. So you're breaking it down so they have the tools to be successful. I also like to say what looks just right one day is not necessarily just right the next day. Depends on kind of where they are in that cup of water, how full is it, and they might need more support one day if they're feeling a little more towards that top of that cup than the next. The next thing I like to talk about is knowing the hard time. So common hard times are transitions and unstructured times. Kind of some common ways to support these are to gamify transitions, make it a race, beat the clock, do it with a doll, transition with different animal walks. Also being proactive with this, so having this idea before they're already resisting, builds that buy-in. So they're not kind of already in that state of fight or flight, freeze, kind of putting their heels in, and it just makes play throughout the day. Again, supporting with more help. Maybe the time to practice putting on shoes isn't in the morning when you're rushing out the door. Maybe we practice that on the weekends. And when that becomes automatic, it might be something they carry over. But again, meeting with that Just Right challenge. Like I said, unstructured time is another really hard time for a lot of kids. Helping them to make it structured. Offering different games or having a visual of what games are present. Sometimes too much is hard to pick something. Or having Like if you need to cook dinner and it's an unstructured time, having 3 choices of activities that they can go to. So if they get bored of one, they can go to the next. So it's not, oh, what do I do? And then because they can't necessarily think of something, start kind of having a harder time with their sibling, etc. I mentioned this a little bit before, but as adults, it's really important we model emotions, good ones and hard ones. Modeling hard ones helps kids to feel less shame about working through their own emotions that are harder. So ways we can do this as adults is narrating our feelings. I feel frustrated because, and talk about it. Obviously, we don't want to necessarily talk about just the frustration maybe around them, but we have frustrations throughout the day. Somebody's running late, dinner got burned, you're stuck in traffic, etc. Showing what coping strategies you use. So I'm going to take a deep breath, or I'm going to take 5 minutes in my room and come back down. I'm going to take a walk. And acknowledging mistakes. So you can always apologize. We'll talk about this in our next presentation, but I'm sorry that I reacted or I raised my voice. That models what we want to see out of our kids and helps them to feel more comfortable when they are learning and making mistakes as well. Some tips to kind of keep the regulation going throughout the day. Like I said, we tend to focus on negatives, unfortunately. That's just how our brain's wired. But that said, our brain is wired to feel negatives more. So it actually takes 3 to 5 positive statements to kind of override a negative one in terms of that like regulation shame feeling. So just focusing on the positives throughout the day can really make a big difference with kids. Focus on the little successes. Oh, they put the one sock on today. Maybe they didn't do both socks and both shoes, but they did something. And focus on those successes, and they're going to want to feel that success more. Sometimes I recommend to families at the end of the day, go over all the positive things that happened during the day. And if you want to work on something, you can pick like one goal of the next day or goal of the week to work on something. It's okay to be working on something, but we really want to highlight those successes. And I mentioned this a little bit before, but that 7 minutes of connection becomes really important. Psychologists show that 7 minutes of one-on-one special time can really support connection and even reduce behaviors or those challenging moments of behavior. This should be labeled as special time, even if you're spending 7 hours with them throughout the day. They get this 5 to 10 minutes. So I average 7 minutes that's devoted to them. It's never leveraged as a consequence. And during this time, we really want to be focusing on what the child wants to do and just really be making positive comments. This isn't a teaching time. This is a time for the child to show and play with you in a way they want and a way they're getting positive feedback. So I'm going to stop the video so that way we can answer more questions. But like I said, if you have any questions from this presentation or want to talk more, we do offer parent coaching consultations. And if you reach out to us, we would be happy to schedule that with you.